When right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood toward the lungs, eventually the deoxygenated blood gets into pulmonary capillaries. So as you can see, when blood enters the pulmonary capillaries, it's deoxygenated, but when it's leaving the pulmonary capillaries to eventually get back to the left side of the heart, so the left ventricle can pump blood into our systems, blood is oxygenated. When we get inside the pulmonary alveoli, we notice that pressure of oxygen inside the pulmonary alveoli is much higher than pressure of oxygen in the pulmonary capillaries. That explains why oxygen from the alveoli diffuses into the pulmonary capillaries. And please keep in mind that the numbers that I use in this video apply to an average size adult at rest. When we focus on the carbon dioxide that we have collected from tissue cells inside the pulmonary capillaries, pressure of carbon dioxide is higher than pressure of this gas inside the pulmonary alveoli. So carbon dioxide diffuses in the opposite direction. It means that carbon dioxide from pulmonary capillaries diffuses into the alveoli, and then through exhalation we eliminate carbon dioxide from our body. So when we focus on blood that gets inside these pulmonary capillaries, and we know in blood two components carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. One would be red blood cell and the other one would be plasma. When we go inside the red blood cell in the pulmonary capillaries, we notice that the red blood cell is full of millions and millions of deoxyhemoglobin. Recall, when we say deoxyhemoglobin, we mean a hemoglobin that is attached to less than 4 oxygen molecules. Here, the hemoglobin molecules that I showed inside this red blood cell, each one of them is attached to 3 oxygen molecules. The number 4, let's call it item, that is attached to hemoglobin is not oxygen. For example, here carbon dioxide is attached to hemoglobin. Here hydrogen ion is attached to hemoglobin. And here in this deoxyhemoglobin, bisphosphoglycerate is the one that is attached to hemoglobin. The goal here is let oxygen from pulmonary alveoli diffuse into the red blood cell, and because pressure of oxygen is very high, it's close to 100 millimeter of mercury, hemoglobin has a very strong affinity for oxygen. So basically hemoglobin binds to oxygen, and since we know hemoglobin cannot bind to more than 4 things, as soon as it binds to oxygen, it has to break the bond that it has with all these items that are not oxygen molecule. So this is basically the goal, to turn every one of these deoxyhemoglobins into oxyhemoglobin. And clearly we have to talk about it. What happens to these molecules or ions that are detached, separated from hemoglobin? So here we start. First, we know that 7% of carbon dioxide that travels in blood and eventually gets inside the pulmonary capillary is in the form of gas. So that portion of carbon dioxide easily from plasma diffuses into the pulmonary alveoli, and as I explained, through exhalation we eliminate this carbon dioxide out of our body. Oxygen molecule, on the other hand, from pulmonary alveoli diffuses into blood and it gets inside the red blood cell. 98.5% of oxygen is transported by the red blood cell. So now we have plenty of oxygen inside the red blood cell, and we know since pressure of oxygen is very high, hemoglobin is very much attracted to oxygen. So what it does, it binds to oxygen molecule, and as a result it has to break the bond with carbon dioxide. Here we can see that one oxyhemoglobin formed, and the result would be release of the carbon dioxide. And we know that 23% of carbon dioxide travels inside the red blood cell attached to, for example, hemoglobin molecule. So now that 23% of carbon dioxide is free, it diffuses inside the pulmonary alveoli and we exhale it out of our body. Now let's see how the other deoxyhemoglobins turn into oxyhemoglobin. As a quick summary, some of the deoxyhemoglobins that are attached to carbon dioxide through the process that I just explained turn into oxyhemoglobin. Now we can see that a similar strategy is used to turn this deoxyhemoglobin into oxyhemoglobin, which simply means that hemoglobin, because it has a strong affinity for oxygen, binds to oxygen and releases hydrogen ion. So another oxyhemoglobin forms, and now hydrogen ion is free, which we know that simply means the acidity inside the red blood cell increases. Basically, pH inside the red blood cell starts going down. To save the cell, bicarbonate ion, which is in plasma, that would be the buffer, diffuses inside the red blood cell. Recall, 70% of carbon dioxide travels in plasma in the form of bicarbonate ion. So that moves into the cell. Bicarbonate ion and hydrogen ion react and form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid split into two molecules that our body has no difficulty eliminating them. Please keep in mind that's the 70% of carbon dioxide diffuses into the pulmonary alveoli, and we eliminate it through exhalation. And we know there are several of our systems that they have no difficulty in eliminating extra water. If the water that forms in this reaction is extra, many of our systems, including respiratory system, urinary system, digestive system, integumentary system, they all can excrete the extra water out of our body. So we learned so far how two groups of deoxyhemoglobin turn into oxyhemoglobin. Last but not least, we follow the same pattern, which simply means that hemoglobin binds to oxygen and as a result breaks its bond with bisphosphoglycerate. Please keep in mind, bisphosphoglycerate is not a toxic substance, so it just stays inside the red blood cell. And when this red blood cell that now is full of oxyhemoglobin goes to systemic capillaries, bisphosphoglycerate can actually assist hemoglobin in releasing oxygen to the tissue. Bisphosphoglycerate, as we recall, is a byproduct of anaerobic glycolysis that happens in the red blood cell, a molecule that we can reuse multiple times. So now we have basically the end of this story. The red blood cell contains millions and millions of oxyhemoglobins. Blood is oxygenated from lungs. Obviously, we send this blood through veins, including pulmonary veins, to the left side of the heart, and we wait for the left ventricle to pump this blood that is full of oxygen to our systems. I hope you find this helpful.